Hello, everyone. I am Catherine Molesky. I am the Program Director here at AASHTO for the AASHTO Product Evaluation and Audit Solutions Technical Service Program. I'm excited for all of you to join us today to discuss several of the components related to the Reinforcing Steel and Wire Audit Program that this technical service program offers. So I do want to go through some housekeeping items because I realize that all of us are not utilizing Zoom on a daily basis. First and foremost, this webinar is only for state and FHWA members. So if you are an industry member, I do ask that you do leave the webinar. A recording of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel for AASHTO Product Evaluation Audit Solutions in the immediate future. Also, if you would like to hover over your name, and then you'll see the three dots appear, and you can rename yourself so that the state you're representing shows up after your name. That way, we'll have a visual representation of what states are on the webinar, and especially if we need this information for discussion at the end of the webinar. As we're going through the webinar and presenting on several different items, if you have any questions while the presenters are presenting, enter your question in either the chat box at the bottom of the Zoom screen or in the Q&A box. If we're able to provide a quick response to your message, one of the panelists will do that. If we're unable to, we'll certainly keep track of the questions and bring them up at the end in open discussion as time allows. And with that, so that's the housekeeping items for the webinar. The presenters for today are, of course, myself, and then along with myself is Michael Muratu, who is the program manager for AASHTO Product Evaluation and Audit Solutions, and he also oversees the audit programs. After Michael will be Robert Sarcinella, who is a longtime AASHTO contract auditor. Following Robert Sarcinella will be the chair for the Reinforcing Steel and Wire Technical Committee, Meryl Zwanko with South Carolina DOT. And following Meryl will be Kenny Seward, the Vice Chair of Reinforcing Steel and Wire Technical Committee from Oklahoma Department of Transportation. So that gives you the lay of the land for who the presenters are. I'm going to turn it over to Michael, who's going to provide an overview of what the webinar will consist of today.
Yes, the purpose of this webinar, of course, is we're going to talk about the purpose of the program. What does an audit program include? Reinforcing steel and wire audits testing, accessing audit results in data mine, and state testimonials. So, what is AASHTO Product Evaluation Audit Solutions? This is a program under the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, AASHTO, of course. The program aims to evaluate and audit programs used in transportation infrastructure to ensure they meet industry standards and specifications. So let's talk about some of the key functions. Product evaluation. This involves the assessment of transportation products to ensure they meet quality and performance standards, whether it's testing, comparison, documentation. And then for audits, the focus here is on-site inspections, visiting manufacturers' facilities, and to observe processes firsthand, compliance checks, and annual audits. Now, for the audit program versus product evaluation, this is for the audit programs and product evaluation. The focus is on manufacturing and quality assurance, quality control process. For audit programs, this is within the facility. For product evaluation, this is actually for the final product itself. Now, for sample testing, audit program that basically involves testing samples to verify compliance with standards, and then product evaluation that's evaluating the product's characteristics, through specific tests to make sure it meets industry benchmarks. We also have QA testing of manufacturer versus AASHTO designated lab. This ensures manufacturer's quality assurance aligns with the standards by AASHTO's designated laboratories. And then, of course, spot check of acceptable final products. This is basically random inspections to verify that the products actually meet the required specifications. And then, of course, the product evaluation program This is to, as I mentioned before, to assess the quality and performance of specific products used in transportation. Now, for goals for AASHTO product evaluation and audit solutions. First, you want to, the first goal is to develop and conduct meaningful and unbiased audits. What does this mean? Basically, our first goal is to create and execute thorough and impartial audits of our manufacturing facilities. We aim to ensure these audits meet the specific needs and standards of our member states. And this means we're committed to providing audits that are, fair, basically fair. And then our next goal is to save state resources. What does this mean? We focus on helping states save their resources by conducting centralized audits, and we reduce the need for states to spend their own resources in in-house manufacturing facility audits. Essentially, we provide audit information that states might not have the capacity to do themselves or gather independently, making the process more efficient for everyone involved. Next, we provide access to audit information. Of course, this is goals to offer access to comprehensive audit data, which can be found in DataMine, which is our data repository for all information about audits, and then saving manufacturers' resources to minimize the resources manufacturers would otherwise basically spend on individual state evaluations of their facilities.
Yep. So this is Catherine again, and I'll cover what an audit is not. So it's really important to know that it is always the DOT's responsibility to look at the information being provided in DataMine. And what I mean by this is, with the product evaluation side, obviously data is getting reported and released in DataMine. On the audit side, the auditors are going out, conducting these on-site audits, doing desktop reviews, and having that information be accessible through DataMine. It really is the responsibility of the DOT to go out there and utilize the resource we have in place, DataMine, to access this information. I highly encourage you to go directly out there. Do not ask manufacturers to provide you with this data. That's why, AASHTO does provide access to any state member with the ability to go into DataMine, look at this information for yourself, and then you can make the determination of whether or not a facility meets what your state specifications or requirements are. Also, auditors are auditing these facilities and looking at it as a snapshot in time. What do I mean by that? They're going into the facility. Of course, they're on that day. They're not there throughout the year. These audits are being done once per year on site. And they're not inspectors. They're called auditors for a reason. Again, they're looking at the manufacturing process, they're reviewing documentation on that day, and of course, looking at information and reviewing records that have been completed throughout a given calendar year. And what an audit is not. So, of course, the desktop review entails a review of the quality management system, based on what the findings are within a desktop review. Obviously constitute what happens during an on-site audit. But again, the auditor is going into these facilities. Yes, they're looking at the policies and procedures that the manufacturer has, but in no way, shape, or form are they, carrying out the duties associated with making sure that things are done in an inspection type way. So again, it's really important to note that if your state is doing a very thorough inspection of these facilities, continue what you're doing unless you want to do, reduce the resources and utilize this program. Again, it's always the option of what a state DOT wants to do. A lot of times this program will be used to supplement what you're currently doing for your state.
Furthermore, about components of an audit. First, for the quality management QMS review, this is first, we review the QMS manual to ensure it aligns with AASHTO and ASTM standards. This includes checking documentation of processes and procedures, training, competency, evaluation records, and equipment and calibration verification records. We also call this a desktop review, which is for new facilities and facilities that are conducting audits every 5 years. This will need to happen in terms of a desktop review. For on-site audits, verification of QMS implementation. Basically, the objective here is to verify that the QMS is implemented and maintained. Basically, our auditors are reviewing the production, the testing, and the calibration and processes and whatnot. Now, for the feeling of the on-site audit, a lot of our auditors, they've mentioned to me in the past that an audit just didn't feel right. And so that's why we send our auditors to these audits on site to kind of check on the environment, the atmosphere, and kind of see what the manufacturer is doing in these facilities. And of course, manufacturer's documentation. We require documents from the manufacturer, including current AASHTO and ASTM standards, evaluation records, training, internal audit, management review records, and so forth. Now, continuing on components of an audit. Bring this up. So for the quality management system manual review, as I mentioned, again, that we also call this the desktop review. First, we review the QMS manual to ensure it aligns with AASHTO and ASTM standards. And then next, we confirm that the manual complies with the requirements, outlined in SB01 and the work plan, which actually can be found on our website and our homepage. We cross-reference the manual with these documents to make sure the standards are implemented. And then corresponding documents, we require several documents from the manufacturer, including current AASHTO and ASTM standards, training and evaluation records, and reports and equipment calibration records. And then for all aspects addressed, we evaluate to ensure that all aspects of the QMS are thoroughly covered during the desktop review. So for example, let's say we had an audit, a first-time company or first-time facility conducting an audit. We're conducting an audit in Jacksonville, Florida in June. So that would mean they would need to have a desktop review. In this desktop review, our auditors, if they see any corrections that need to be made, this needs to be addressed before the actual audit happens. So we give time for that facility to address those corrections that need to be made for that desktop review. Next, furthermore, components of an audit.
So one of the main differences between the AASHTO audits that we provide to the state DOTs and industry in comparison to, something like an ISO audit is, in addition to reviewing documentation like Michael just mentioned, we, the auditors are doing a physical walkthrough of the manufacturing facility from raw material, billets or what have you in a steel mill through to the end product and making sure, each component is tracked accordingly. So not only are reviewing, we're reviewing several different documents that you're highly familiar with, because a lot of you work within laboratories, but we're also taking that approach and making sure that everything is adequate and working efficiently in the manufacturing area. Along with this is every facility has their own quality control procedures in place, right? Taking samples, doing temperature checks, what have you. So again, the auditor is walking alongside the steel mill staff, walking through this process, making sure that checks and balances are in place so that they are satisfactorily manufacturing the product in accordance with the ASTM AASHTO standards. Again, verifying the testing techniques are in compliance with the test procedures. That relates back to utilizing the AASHTO and ASTM test methods, making sure that they're utilizing the most current version, making sure that the equipment in place is the correct equipment, that it's being calibrated, so on and so forth.
Okay. All right. So as I mentioned before, feeling of the on-site audit. This is the reason why we send our auditors to these audits to assess the overall organization and, basically, as I mentioned before, the cleanliness of the facility. This includes documented processes and procedures, consistent, accurate record keeping, properly maintained, calibrated equipment, and well-trained staff, and making sure they feel good about the audit. Also, does it appear that the facility can produce an acceptable product? Yes, we review the quality of products being produced as well. As I mentioned before, indicators of this is producing acceptable products include compliance with relevant standards and specifications, completion of quality control tests, and comparison sample results are positive, and minimal issues in the final products. A facility that consistently meets or exceeds these standards and customer expectations is considered reliable. So this is the end of terms of for the components of audit. One of the things we do is for the documentation for our manufacturers, we review the specifications. Basically, an auditor, I've visited, a couple facilities, and I would see the auditor, bring out these checklists. And basically what they're doing is they're checking to see if they have every specification up to date in their documents, in their files. And they need to ensure that they adhere to the relevant standards and specifications for the program. This includes AASHTO and ASTM standards and documentation compliance. Training competency, as I mentioned before, that we verify that employees involved in quality control and testing are trained properly and are competent. This involves reviewing trainer records and evaluations. And then for calibrations, verifications, standardizations, this is just to make sure equipment used in the manufacturing testing is properly done, calibrated, and verified. And then for testing, this is basically reviewing the current and previous results of the test to ensure product quality and compliance. This involves examining recent test records and historical data for comparison and documentation of corrective action.
So in a little while, Michael will run the audience through DataMine and the documents included in DataMine. So on the screen right here, though, is a list of those types of documents. So when an audit is performed, obviously a final audit report does get produced for each facility audit and uploaded onto DataMine. In addition, samples are taken during each on-site audit, whether it's wire, reinforcing steel, 7-wire strands, and we'll talk a little bit about the logistics related to comparison test results, but those test results get uploaded onto DataMine. The markings that some of your inspectors might need to identify in the field when they're on job sites, those markings are also collected during the audit and uploaded onto DataMine. If any deficiencies are found within an on-site audit, the manufacturer is responsible for putting together a corrective action form after the completion of the audit. That information then becomes available to each of you as registered state members in DataMine. The biggest component of every audit is the compliance authentication. So every facility that gets audited wants to be compliant with the program, and the compliance authentication really is their, the document that they're, and you guys as states are probably most concerned with, in addition to reviewing the content in the audit report itself, making sure that the facility does have a current compliance authentication, which is also available in DataMine. At the time the facilities submit their applications each fall, they do have to submit their quality manual as part of that application. If their quality manual does get updated over time, over that calendar year, they are responsible for notifying AASHTO for, and having us upload a revised quality manual. This is related to the fact I know a lot of states that you guys want to see, what are their quality control? What are your quality assurance procedures within that steel mill? This gives you the ability to access this information in DataMine and take a look at it so that you don't have to directly contact that manufacturer.
All right. Thank you, Catherine. I'm going to talk about what I consider the more fun part that goes on in an audit. That's actually going through and witnessing manufacturing and getting into the testing that we go ahead and witness. And once again, these audits are done on site at the facility. And what the auditors are looking at when it comes to reinforcing steel, as you can see listed there, we're looking at both carbon and stainless reinforcing bar. And then we're also looking at wire. And then that wire is sometimes turned into either strand for 7-wire strand or turned into the finished product, which is welded wire reinforcement. And in the testing of reinforcing steel at the mill, anybody that's familiar with the testing that they've done in their own laboratory at the DOT can see we're looking at all the tests that are basically associated with the product and what the specification calls for. So we're looking at tensile strength, yield strength, elongation, bend, and then modulus if you're looking at strand. Of course, weight per foot if you're looking at deformed material, and then along with that, also looking at deformations for the deformed material, and then diameter for material that's plain. Now, if you haven't been to a lab, I would highly encourage you go to your own lab if you're doing reinforcing steel testing and kind of watch what they do, because it's always interesting and you learn a lot. We are at the manufacturers here, and we're looking at the tensile strength of the bar, or the same test would look similar if we were using it for a piece of wire. So we use the tensile test. You get an idea of what the overall strength of the product is, even though from a design standpoint, you're more interested in the yield. But, you know, there's a certain requirement for the product as to what is the minimum tensile strength, and in some cases, what's the maximum tensile strength. And we do that for both plain, or as it's commonly known, smooth, and deformed bar and wire. Other testing that we go ahead and witness is the yield strength. Like I said, from a design standpoint, the yield strength is very important. So this is an example of a yield test going on. It's done as part of the tensile strength. And as you can see, the green item that's attached to the bar is an extensometer. And what that does is that helps determine the yield of the product as it stretches under load. And so, you know, like I said, this is an example of what just typically it would look like, no matter whether you had a bar or a wire in the unit. And then for elongation, a bar is marked when it's together, and then it's tested until it fails or breaks, as you can see here. And then it's measured again afterwards and gives you how much ductility or how much elongation that bar had, you know, before it fractured. So you're getting, you know, a total elongation that goes on. And once again, you can do this with both plain and deformed bar. This is an example of plain bar that I have pictured here. With strand, you're looking at several things. You're looking at tensile strength again, the yield strength, you know, elongation, but also the modulus of elasticity, which is an important design factor. So once again, we're looking at this, and this is a picture of the strand in as it is under load, and then if you'll see, the next picture will show you that this is what it looks like after it fails. You'll get one wire break, and you get a couple more, because even though it's a 7-wire strand, if one breaks, a lot of times the strand itself can still maintain and hold up until a few more of the wires break. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking at when things happen, and you know what comes of all of that. And along with this, for 7-wire strand, we're also looking at the diameters of the individual wires, because once again, all that stuff kind of goes into calculation as to what the ultimate strength is. And if you're not familiar with this, or you haven't witnessed it, and you have the ability to see it within the lab of your DOT, I would highly recommend that you take a look at it, because it is quite interesting. Other products that we look at are welded wire reinforcement. We talked earlier about wire, which is kind of like bar, it's a straight piece of steel. Now, you take that straight piece of steel on spools, and then you go ahead and you weld it together, and you end up with welded wire reinforcement, which is starting to be used more and more now in lieu of just conventional tied reinforcing steel. And we go look at the welded wire mats, and we sample that, and we're looking at both plain and deformed wire, and we take samples of that and run them through a series of testing. Example of one of the tests that you do on it is you take an intersection. The finished sample kind of looks like a cross, and what you're doing, if you take a look at the drawing, at the very bottom of the drawing, you're pulling down on the wire, and you have the cross actually nestled in the weld shear rig, as it's called, or testing device. And you're going ahead and you're pulling, and you're looking for that cross wire to basically shear away from the longitudinal wire that you're pulling on. So, and that gives you an idea of what your weld shear strength is. And we, once again, we witnessed that for both plain and smooth, and then also the deformed wire. And then with steel, you have to do a bend test. That gives you another idea of ductility and the ability to go ahead and fabricate the steel. So with reinforcing steel bar, we look at the, which is on the right-hand side, we look at the bends. They're done around various mandrels based upon the diameter of the bar. And so you have a mandrel that's related to how many diameters you need to have. And if you're familiar with the CRSI requirements, and they're also listed in your specification, it gives you how many diameters a bar could be bent at. And that's what we're verifying, is that when those bars are bent, when we're done, we look to see, are there any cracks, or does the bar break during the bending process? And as you can see on the left-hand side, there's a similar test done on wire, because once again, you're trying to make sure that any fabrication, anything that goes on with that wire can happen, and it could be bent at the appropriate diameter. And really what it comes down to when you're an auditor and you're in testing is, it comes down to, you got to have some fun on these audits. And if you have never been on an audit, I would highly encourage you to go ahead and attend the audit and see what goes on. And what I'd like to do is, here's something I'd like to leave you with for my portion, is something that we kind of get some enjoyment out of. We get to watch stuff break. And there you go.
All right. Thank you very much, SARS. That was a great part of seeing how audits work in the reinforced steel and wire. Now, once an auditor is completed their audit, and are afterwards they go home or go to their hotel, and they actually upload documents in regards to the final audit report, or comparison test results, and various other documents into DataMine, which is our repository of all audit data, which you will have access, or you should have access, but if you don't, let us know. Basically, you will log in and go into construction, and then pick reinforcing steel and wire if you want to see reinforcing steel and wire audits. As you can see on the left-hand side, this is the bar. but first you would go to construction, pick reinforcing steel and wire. There's a drop down, and then you will see the filters on the left-hand side. Let's say if you wanted to see a facility in Jacksonville, Florida, and I keep saying Jacksonville, Florida, because I just visited Jacksonville, Florida. I love it there, very sunny. You would, of course, click the manufacturer, then click Jacksonville, Florida, and then, of course, you know, the product type or product specification, product type, whether it's welded wire or rebar or whatnot. And then, of course, the calendar year. Now, if you want to see past audits that we have 2024 and more as well, further back. And then, of course, if you want to see audits that have been completed already, information that's been uploaded, or you can just go 2025. So if you want to actually see the audit reports and the data, you would first, let me go back real quick. You first click on the data mine number here. These are the data mine numbers that are tied, associated with the manufacturer. Then you would actually go over to the next tab, which is audit information. As you can see here, you would see the manufacturer's information, the location, the data mine number, and then, of course, the year that this was submitted, the application or for the audit. And then you would see also if the audit type, the status, if it's compliant or not, the ASTM A615 status, the actual audit date, and then who is the auditor that was assigned. And then when you scroll down, this is where you see a lot of the reports that are uploaded after the audit, whether it's the comparison test results, the corrective action reports, the marking reports, and then the final audit report. Now, for the compliance authentication, this is items that we upload as AASHTO staff. So this basically states that a facility was found compliant. So this is the compliance authentication. Now, these are various reports that you will find in DataMine. This is the audit report, and then these are the markings you will find in DataMine. Here are also further reports, whether it's the compliance authentication or the comparison test results. And this is just a corrective action form, but this is what is filled out for the correction action reports in DataMine. So we just wanted to show you what it kind of looks like.
So as Michael just walked you through several of the different documents associated with each of these audits, it's really important to know that, you know, the main purpose of this program being put into place was to hold each facility to the same standard at a national level, right? So we did the same exact thing when we're putting the several different types of documents together to upload onto DataMine. We've got a uniform format. We don't want you guys as states to have to, you know, search in different areas to get the same information from different facilities. So again, very uniform format when it comes to the audit report itself. All of the information that is in that audit report is all included in the committee work plan as well as standard practice 01. Those documents are available on our website. The work plan does get reviewed, actively get reviewed by the technical committee members. That's state and industry members, gets balloted. In this case, pretty much once per year. It's not required to be once per year, but usually there are changes made to the work plan that get balloted to the state DOTs. And again, the information that is being reviewed during these audits, it's all captured within that work plan. The auditors are auditing in accordance to that work plan and the content included in the work plan. I realize that in some capacities, there are travel restrictions in state DOTs, and, maybe it's related to budget. It doesn't have to be related to budget constraints, but, the main purpose of putting such detailed, comprehensive audit reports together is to show you what it's like to be there in case you can't be, in person at these audits, giving you that feel good feeling that Michael talked about, as if you did attend the audit. And then, it's important to note that, reviewing the documentation is important, but, if you don't have time to review the comprehensive report, which I highly encourage you to, but you can always do a quick check in DataMine to see which facilities are compliant and which facilities are not compliant.
Now, on our website, we actually have a map of all of our reinforcement steel and wire audits for 2025. It's located on our homepage. As you can see here, we broke it down, of course, the different types of audits within reinforcement steel and wire, including rebar, welded wire, and it's color coded as well. So it's throughout the United States. So if you want to just kind of take a look at that, you can actually zoom in. Oh, sorry, you can't zoom in here, of course, but you can see where all of our reinforcement steel and wire audits for 2025.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and tell this group how South Carolina uses this program, and how it's helped us. And so that hopefully, if you're not using this program, you might get some ideas how you can incorporate it into your specifications or your system. So anyway, we require AASHTO compliance with several of the categories that are in this audit program. The reinforcing steel bar, rebar, it meets, we have a QPL for that. It has to meet AASHTO M31 type W, which is the same as ASTM A706. We are a seismic state, so we have to use the type W instead of type S. We use this for 7-wire strand for pre-stressed concrete. That also, we have a QPL for that this is required to, you have to have compliance to be on this, and welded wire reinforcement, the same thing. The DOT engineers frequently attend these audits, assist with sampling, and one of the things we require on our QPO is that at least 3 of the 10 bars that are sampled during the audit have to be the type W bars. Some of the other states may only use type S, and that's fine, but we require our facilities that we use to have at least 3 of the type Ws. So that way we at least have a sample of that. So, then it's not just enough for us to say you're compliant. Beyond just being compliant by this program, we also have specifications in place on our QPP, or Qualified Product Policy, which says that each bar cannot vary by a certain % for unit weight, yield strength, and elongation. Same thing with average of the bars. There's a unit weight, yield strength, and tensile strength, elongation requirement on that as well. And then an overall specification that says no more than 10% of the results, including individual samples and heats of the average of the heat results, can be outside, because we don't want to just, it's not just compliant. You can go on that up to DataMine, and you can look at the comparison tests between the AASHTO designated laboratory and the facility, and look and see, and then your state may want to have tighter tolerances than what's out there. So I encourage you to take a look at that if you haven't. And then how this helped us is we were able to reduce our project level field sampling quantities for rebar. For producers that were in this program, we used to go visit these facilities, and then also out in the field, we took the samples from the project sites under bridge projects and things like that. I used to have to get a sample each size, each shipment. Got a lot of them each month, and now we kind of narrowed it down to where you only need to get that once a month. We felt like this program showed that the facilities, even in between times when we're not sampling on the project site, the facilities the producers were producing a very high quality product. We very, very few failures in material. We feel pretty good about this program. So our DOT, we've been very fortunate. We had a state gas tax increase for the first time in like 25 years. really tough, but that extra money, we were able to get all kinds of construction projects out there while also cutting staff. So this was one way we were able to accommodate that extra construction work. We could reduce some of the rebar sampling, rebar testing, and therefore keep up with the projects that are out there. So I highly encourage you, even if you don't do audits right now, this is a good program to use. You're paying for it anyway. Go ahead and put it out there as a requirement. It's not going to hurt you. So and with that, I'll introduce the vice chair of this program, Kenny Seward of Oklahoma DOT.
Hi, I'm Kenny Seward with Oklahoma. Oklahoma's been involved with this almost since the inception. As soon as one of the facilities in our state was up for audit, we started assisting Robert Sarcinello and Catherine when they would come out as auditors and inspect the deals. We use it for compliance for reinforcing steel and bar. We require our bar to meet AASHTO M31 or M322. We use S and W both where are allowed. We use mostly S. We don't do a lot of seismic in Oklahoma. The only way for a reinforcing steel bar mill to get on our approved list is to have this program and be compliant. We started out, we just used it as a place to determine how everything was going. But once Texas came on board and they're the big dog in our area, we just jumped on and said, you have to be compliant. There's no other way to get on than to be compliant. Wire, we use that to put anybody new on. We've still got some facilities that we had on before compliance came out. We haven't cut the cord on that and said everybody on the list has to be, but we will be doing that also soon. We don't use it currently as the only means to get on 7-wire strand and pre-stress and everything, but we are looking to do that. The reason we don't is we don't maintain a list of approved facilities yet for 7-wire strand. So once we determine that we want to start a list of the approved strand facilities, we will go to where they have to be compliant. We think it is important that they be audited. One of the things, like Merrill was saying, is we had a reduction in staff. Our lab probably has a third of the amount of people that we used to have in the lab. So we had to reduce personnel, which means we had to reduce testing. Because of this audit program, we reduced from texting every single load on every single heat for every single size of bar. It took about 2 or 3 men all day long for an entire week to do all that. And we were able to just reduce that amount of testing to just random. We'll test random, we'll test certain little items, and it enabled us to continue testing other materials like welded wire reinforcement. We still do that in-house, but we reduced it down to just smaller certain segments of it. We don't test it in pipe or anything like that, but we test it in boxes and any bridge structures. We'll test the welded wire reinforcement ourselves. We are considering it as a way to get on an approved list for that, but we haven't gone there yet. Other than that, I would highly encourage any other state DOTs, when you saw the area of where all the different audits were going to take place. If you've never been in a steel mill, find out when they're going to audit in your area. Go there, watch what happens. It'll change your mind on if you're having questions whether or not you want to use this program. If you go out there and you watch the auditors perform an audit and you learn things that you didn't know that you needed to watch for, you will gain a lot of knowledge just by going and tagging along with the auditor when he's in the state doing that deal. We used to go and do a lot of audits, But like I say, with the reduction of personnel and the reduction of money, we can't go to the facilities like we used to. This is a way for us to pretend we're there and see what happens. But we still try to do it anytime one of the auditors is in our state, we go watch and we try to assist. I'm not asking everybody else to go out there and assist and help pull samples and things like that, but just go and observe and you'll learn a lot. And with that, I'd like to reintroduce Catherine to close us out.
Thank you, Kenny. So on the screen, you'll see the United States map, and every couple of years, this program does what we call a state usage survey. So we send a survey out to the state DOTs asking them what programs they're utilizing in the way of both audit and product evaluation programs. So in this case, 48 states did respond to the survey. Now, I will tell you that the survey was done a little while ago. So if you're seeing that your state is not green, but you are now requiring the program, please send an email to me or anyone on the AASHTO staff, and we can certainly get this data updated. But you can see that, you know, this program is used by almost half the states. 22 states are requiring the program. And then additionally, though, the states in yellow are allowing it in lieu of something else. So again, the gray states out there, it shows that right now those states are not utilizing the program. The white states did not respond to the survey. But again, take a look at this information, take a look at what your state specifications are. As Kenny mentioned, if you are on the fence about whether or not you should be utilizing this program or how your state can benefit, you know, get with me, get with any of the AASHTO staff. We can set you up so that you can see firsthand what happens during an on-site audit and how that compares to what your state is currently requiring in the way of what the manufacturers are providing you for the products that are being used on job sites. And the next screen here is a QR code of our website itself. So a lot of the content we talked about today, whether, you know, we're talking about the work plan or standard practice 01 or the audit documents, even the audit document, the worksheets that the auditors utilize to carry out the audits are all located on our website. So you can utilize that QR code, scan it with your phone, and check out our website. If you've got any questions on the information that's out on our website, including, you know, the technical committee membership, if you see that your state's not represented on this technical committee, but is interested in being on the technical committee, again, shoot any one of us an email. Our contact information is on the website, and we'd be more than happy to help you.